All right. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I hope everybody's having a good time today. So I am Terry Barber. I am a cybersecurity manager for American Express Global Business Travel. My team manages the Qualys platform for the company, and our goal is to be able to provide to our remediation teams and our AppSec security team who manages the remediations with those teams the information that they need to be able to do their jobs. So our team is an engineering team, and our primary goal is to make sure that they're getting all the information that they have to have. I've been with GBT for 7 years now. I studied computer science at California State University, Northridge, CSUN, and been doing this for about 20 years now. American Express Global Business Travel was spun off from Amex proper several years ago, and we've been doing all of our travel business separately from Amex these days. We went public last year, and we're here to talk about what we've done over the last year with Total Cloud. And I know the slide came up and said problem, but I'd like to think of it more of a challenge these days, because we've been able to leverage the solution to provide a significant amount of value to the business teams and to the AppSec team and the remediation teams in order for them to be able to do their jobs. We know that when we go into these particular issues, we've got to be able to identify the inventory. That's one of my #1 things. One of the items that I really don't like people saying, and I hear it all too often, is we don't know what we don't know. And so when you've got that kind of a gap, then you literally have assets that are out in the environment. You don't know what the state is. You could have any type of issue. You could have stuff in the cloud. You could have stuff on-prem. But anytime you've got assets that you don't have control of and you're not pulling vulnerability information for, then that's going to be a risk to the company. So that's one of the things that we look at first when we're looking at getting our information in place. And Total Cloud is one of the tools that we use for obvious reasons. We can actually get a picture of what's going on in each one of the accounts very quickly. We like to visualize the posture to understand our cloud risk exposure. So when we first started with Total Cloud, that was simply looking at the posture for those particular accounts, what was going on in those. Each one could be S3 buckets that were public. We could have problems with configurations on EC2s, any one of a number of issues against the CIS benchmarks or the best practices that were going on inside of that system. We want to prioritize, and that's been one of the biggest things that we've worked with for the last year, year and a half, that was a mandate that came from our CISO, which is we need to know those things that are putting the company most at risk, be able to get everything under control, put those at the top of the heap, and make sure that they get fixed first. So that was one of our big items. And then the other thing that we did in the last year is making sure that we've got policy and compliance in place. We have a director of our compliance group that is constantly asking our team for information to be able to answer audit questions, and I know all of you have to go through that as well. So every time we have audit questions that come through, our team usually gets picked to go talk about what we're doing with the platform so that we can get that information and then answer those questions. And finally, this last year, we've added file integrity monitoring so that we can have all of those assets that need to be covered for compliance reasons with FIM to be covered. So those were the things that we were trying to take care of, and we turned to Total Cloud and Parag's team and Qualys to be able to help us in that particular area a year ago. And now here we are, a year down the road. We've got everything in place. We're starting to learn what to do with it. And last year when I talked with Parag about this, I had a wish list. And so we were talking about some of the things that we wanted to be able to do. When we're going into our systems, we're looking at different things that we need to be able to get information-wise coming back into the platform so that we can then report on it. And so we started probably where most people start, which is we're going to install cloud agents, and we're going to install a scanner appliance. So in AWS, for example, that would be an HVM. So we're going to stand up the HVM. We're going to start scanning. We're going to start hitting the EC2s. We're going to do our perimeter scans. We're going to pull all that information back. And it was a timely, I would say, bonus that Parag and the team said, we're coming up with some new features that I think you're going to be interested in. And I get very excited when I think about some of these things because it definitely fits the bill for what we need, and it would probably help a lot of you in the same situation. But when we started looking at what we had and doing the inventories, so we would stand a connector up. And one of the first things that we learned real fast was, and good example, use case, real life use case, you've got a new AWS account, for example, however you inherited it. It may have come from an acquisition, or maybe you had a business unit that stood up an AWS account and it's not part of your org structure and you didn't know about it. Any one of a number of reasons. And you can literally go in and get a connector stood up, pull all the inventory back in just a few minutes to know what you've got in that AWS account. And then more importantly, you can wait for it for a few more minutes, and you're going to get a compliance and posture setting so you can look and see what's going on with that particular account. I've actually done this myself. It's incredibly fast. It's incredibly informative. It gives you the information that you need, so there's that visibility that we're talking about. And if you've got anything that's detrimental to the environment, you can take that directly to your superiors, your remediation teams, your AppSec teams, whoever it is that you need to take that information to, and you can get that handled. So that's one of the bonuses that we got with that particular piece, is the inventory and the speed of that. And I'm going to be honest with you. On Monday morning, in my hotel room upstairs, I had to do that on 3 brand new AWS accounts that we didn't know about. And by noon, when I took lunch break, I already had my postures. Knew everything that was going on in those accounts. It's already being handed off to the AppSec team so they can start working on it. It's already in their prioritization queue for everything they need to fix. Additional information, they've added so many features. We've added additional permissions to our policy that sits on the trust for that particular connector, and we can pull back virtually everything that we need to look at information-wise in that particular system. So any one of the AWS accounts, I would say that probably the most interesting use case we have in that particular area is something that we had to do with a set of Fargate clusters. So we were given a scenario whereby somebody wanted to do a scan on a set of Fargate clusters, and as we all know, they're spinning up and spinning down and changing constantly, so the IPs were changing. And so what we did was we worked with Parag's team, and Srikant actually helped us do this. We actually put together a Qflow, and if you guys haven't used that, highly recommended. It was that particular tool that allowed us to put together a workflow. We could actually pull the account, we could pull back the IPs for the Fargate clusters that we're currently running, and then we could schedule a scan and scan those, dump them into a report, hand those off to the team that was looking for that because they had to hand it over to an auditor, fulfilled that particular request, and it was very simple to do, nice and easy. Once we got a handle on how we were programming and Srikant told us what we were teaching to the other teams so we could pull this all together, everything just fell into place. It was an awesome feature that we got for that. The next item that we have that goes along with that for one of the results is the FlexScan piece. So I'm sure a lot of you have run into this before. You've got an infrastructure team that loves to take an existing running EC2 and clone it. They'll make a copy of it. They may not like the word clone. My team doesn't. They like to say, yeah, we just made a copy. You know, the one that's running over here is our golden image. And so we're just going to make a copy of that. But it's got Cloud Agent running on it. So when that happens, we end up with multiple EC2s, all using the same IDs for the Cloud Agent, and we start getting duplicates in the system. And so one of the options that Parag and team have given us for FlexScan is a capability of doing the API scan and the snapshot scan. So what we're going to do going forward, and we started working on this last week, is we're going to actually take the system, we're going to uninstall the Cloud Agents off of the master, what they're cloning off of, and we're going to start doing API scans so we can get our scan information that way. So we'll scan the master, and then when they spin up a new one off of that, we can schedule inside a Qflow to go out and get those so we can do an event bridge, have everything hooked up, and pull that information back and tell it to fire off a scan and get what we need from that particular piece. And then another problem that we're trying to fix with this is with the snapshot scan. So a lot of times you've got business entities that want to save money. They don't want those EC2s up and running all the time. It might be a situation where that EC2 is shut down for 30 days, 60 days, and they're trying to save those dollars, and you get stale on what you're pulling back. Well, the risk there is obvious. If that machine's not up and running, who's patching it? Who's fixing any vulnerabilities that are on it? And by the way, your cloud agent's not working, and you aren't scanning it because your appliance can't hit it because it's shut down currently. So we're looking at taking the snapshot scan to do a regular scan of those stopped instances, and then what we have is we got real-time vulnerability information, even though it's not running, and when they decide they want to fire that thing back up, and all of a sudden we don't have a machine that shows up with 300 vulnerabilities on it because they haven't patched it for 3 months. And I'm sure people have run into that situation before as well. So FlexScan for us is a huge addition to the tool set. It's something that we're definitely going to make use of as we move forward. I'm all about automation, and I don't like doing things manually. I especially don't like having to do things twice. One of the things that I like to have my team do, and this is something that we've gotten into as a regular item, is we just like to automate, get everything in place. We'll have all the busy work taken care of for us. So automation for us is the queue flow piece. Closing the gaps is going to be the flex. And then, of course, the big thing for us, and this is something that I asked for last year, and I was very happy to find out about it this year, is CDR. So we were experimenting with the network passive sensor a year ago for POC, and to find out that we've got CDR coming available so we can actually track what's going on. It's an addition to the tool set that's going to allow us to see if anybody is doing exfiltration of sensitive data out of the areas that we care about the most. So we're looking forward to that coming out as well, and that's going to be one of the big tools that we're going to be using going forward. And thank you very much.